High Counselor Trix's crystalline appendages clinked against the pristine white table of the Alliance Council chamber, creating a rhythmic sound that perfectly matched their growing irritation. The massive holographic display, hovering above the center of the table, showed footage that would have been comical if it weren't so concerning: a human maintenance worker riding what appeared to be a modified cleaning drone through a plasma conduit. This is the fourth incident this month, Trix announced, their bioluminescent patches flashing in patterns of deep purple, a clear sign of exasperation among the Kurthani species. They're going to get themselves killed and possibly take half our engineering corps with them. Around the circular table, representatives of 12 advanced civilizations watched the footage with varying degrees of horror and fascination. The Kurthani, with their crystalline-based technology and methodical approach to engineering, had been the backbone of the Alliance's technological advancement for 3 centuries. Their ships were works of art, perfect geometric shapes that housed the most efficient engines in known space. Ambassador LK. RT of the Hive Collective clicked their mandibles thoughtfully. The humans do achieve results, though. That particular modification increased efficiency by 47%. By violating 17 different safety protocols, Trix's crystals now glowed an intense red. They treat our carefully crafted engineering guidelines like they're mere suggestions. The human representative, Admiral Chen, maintained a diplomatic smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. With all due respect, High Counselor, sometimes guidelines need to be adapted to meet unexpected challenges, especially now. The chamber fell silent at this last statement. The looming shadow of the Draknid Empire's latest offensive hung heavy in everyone's thoughts. The war had been going poorly for the Alliance in recent months. The Draknids, with their organic tech hybrid ships and ruthless battle tactics, had pushed through 3 defensive lines in the past week alone. Speaking of which, Admiral Chen continued, pulling up a new holographic display, "I've just received word that the Draknids have taken the Helios sector. They've adapted their weapons to bypass our crystalline shields." This news sent a wave of murmurs through the chamber. The Kurthani's crystalline shield technology had been considered impenetrable. It was one of the cornerstones of Alliance defense strategy. High Counselor Trix's luminescence dimmed noticeably. "Impossible. Our shields are based on perfect geometric harmonics. They cannot simply be bypassed." And yet Admiral Chen gestured to the tactical display showing Draknid ships cutting through Alliance defenses like they weren't even there. "Here we are. Perhaps it's time we considered some alternative approaches." "You mean reckless human approaches," muttered Representative Zix LA of the Silicon Consciousness, their digital avatar flickering with skepticism. Admiral Chen's smile grew a fraction wider. "I prefer to think of it as creative problem-solving. In fact, I have a proposal regarding one of our more innovative engineers." Before he could continue, emergency lights bathed the council chamber in crimson. A frantic message scrolled across all displays. Draknid fleet detected. Estimated 47 capital ships. Heading Alliance core worlds. Trix's crystals pulsed with alarm patterns. They've never committed this many ships to a single assault. Then perhaps. Admiral Chen said quietly, bringing up the personnel file of a young engineer named Zarah. "It's time we got a little reckless." Zarah Chen stood in the maintenance bay of the Alliance flagship Crystalline Dawn, her dark hair pulled back in a messy bun, with grease smudges decorating her face like war paint. Around her, a small crowd of Kurthani engineers watched in what could only be described as horrified fascination as she jury-rigged a plasma containment field, using parts from 3 different species technologies. "This is highly irregular," muttered Chief Engineer K.R. Stahl, their crystalline form vibrating with anxiety. "The quantum harmonics of Kurthani technology cannot possibly synchronize with whatever that is." Zarah wiped her hands on her already stained jumpsuit and grinned. "That whatever is a modified Terran microwave emitter. And yes, it can synchronize if you think outside the geometric perfection box a little." Her reputation had preceded her arrival on the Crystalline Dawn. Some called her a genius, others called her insane, but everyone agreed on one thing: Zarah Chen got results. She'd saved 3 ships in the past month alone using methods that made traditional engineers need the alien equivalent of anxiety medication. A junior Kurthani engineer, barely out of their growth phase, raised a crystalline appendage, but the manual specifically states. The manual, Zarah interrupted, tapping her wrench against her palm, was written before we knew the Draknids could eat through crystalline shields like space snacks. Sometimes you have to improvise. The maintenance bay's comm system crackled to life. Engineer Chen, report to command immediately. Priority Alpha. Zarah sighed, looking longingly at her half-finished containment field. Keep an eye on this, would you? And whatever you do, don't try to fix it back to regulation standards. Sometimes messy is better than perfect. As she jogged through the ship's pristine corridors, crew members of various species gave her a wide berth, partly out of respect, partly out of fear that she might rope them into one of her unconventional repair schemes. Her last innovation had involved using Hive Collective Silk as a conductor for Core-Thani power crystals. It worked brilliantly, even if it did violate about 20 different Alliance engineering protocols. The doors to command hissed open, revealing Admiral Chen, her father, standing before a tactical display with High Counselor V-Trix. Ah, Engineer Chen. V-Trix's crystals pulsed with barely contained concern. We have a situation that requires your unique approach to problem solving. Zarah's eyes lit up at the holographic display showing the incoming Draknid fleet. A smile tugged at her lips, the kind of smile that made traditional engineers check their insurance policies. When do I start? The first hit from the Draknid fleet didn't just breach the crystalline dawn shields, it shattered them. The impact sent Zarah sprawling across the engineering deck, her toolkit scattering across the pristine floor. Warning klaxons screamed through every corridor as the massive Alliance flagship shuddered under consecutive hits. Status report, she shouted, pulling herself up using a nearby console. The holographic readouts were a nightmare of red warnings and failing systems. Chief Engineer K.R. Stahl's voice crackled through the comm, their usually melodic tones distorted by static and panic. The primary crystal matrix is destabilizing. They're using some kind of resonance weapon. It's disrupting our entire power grid. Through the viewport, Zarah watched in horror as organic tendrils from the Draknid ships pierced through space, latching onto Alliance vessels like cosmic parasites. Each tendril pulsed with sickly green energy that ate through hulls and shields alike. Engineering teams to emergency stations. The ship-wide announcement barely carried over the chaos. Multiple hull breaches detected. Antimatter containment at 60% and falling. Zarah sprinted through the corridors, dodging falling debris and panicked crew members. The ship's crystalline architecture, usually a testament to Core-Thani geometric perfection, was cracking under the assault. Rainbow-hued fractures spread across walls and ceilings like deadly spiderwebs. She burst into the main engineering bay, just as another hit rocked the ship. 3 Core-Thani engineers lay unconscious, their crystalline forms flickering weakly. The central power core, a massive geometric crystal that usually blazed with blue-white energy, was now dimming, infected by spreading patches of sickly green corruption. It's impossible, a senior Hive Collective engineer chittered, their mandibles clicking rapidly in distress. The corruption is spreading through the crystalline matrix faster than we can contain it. The geometric harmonics are completely destabilized. Zarah's mind raced as she took in the damage. The Draknids had somehow turned the Core-Thani's perfect geometry against them, using resonance weapons to disrupt the very mathematical principles that made their technology work. Main power at 30%, someone shouted. Weapons systems offline. Life support failing on decks 7 through 12. Through the engineering bay's main window, Zarah watched as another Alliance ship succumbed to the Draknid assault. Its once beautiful crystalline hull shattered like glass, venting atmosphere and crew into the void. The sight made her stomach turn. We need to evacuate. Engineering K.R. Stahl had regained consciousness, their forms still flickering erratically. The containment field is failing. When it goes, the antimatter reaction will. No, Zarah's voice cut through the chaos like a laser. We're not abandoning this ship. Engineer Chen. K.R. Stahl's voice took on a desperate edge. You don't understand. The geometric corruption has reached the core matrix. The harmonics are beyond repair. Not even your unconventional methods can fix this. Another hit rocked the ship. The lights flickered, and for a moment the only illumination came from the dying glow of the power core and the green corruption eating through it. Main power at 15%. Hull integrity critical. We're losing containment. The ship's AI joined the chorus of warnings. Critical system failure imminent. All personnel proceed to evacuation stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not. The AI's voice died mid-sentence as another system failed. In the sudden silence, Zarah could hear the crystalline structure of the ship groaning under impossible stresses. She looked around the engineering bay at the failing systems, the corrupted crystal matrix, the desperate faces of the engineering team. By all normal engineering principles, by every regulation in the Alliance handbook, the situation was indeed impossible. Zarah Chen had never much cared for impossible. She grabbed her toolkit and began pulling out components that definitely weren't standard issue. KR Stal, I need you to trust me. I have an idea, but you're not going to like it. Whatever you're thinking, KR Stal's crystals pulsed with alarm. It's against every safety protocol we have. Safety protocols, Zarah laughed, the sound almost manic as she began connecting parts that were never meant to work together. The Draknids are turning our own technology against us. I think we're way past protocols. She pulled out what looked like a modified plasma cutter and began making adjustments that made the Kurthani engineers back away in horror. Sometimes she muttered, more to herself than the others, you have to break something perfectly to make it work imperfectly. You're going to get us all killed, someone whispered. Zarah looked up, her eyes reflecting the dying light of the power core. Maybe. But if we do nothing, we're definitely all dead. She hefted her modified tool and turned toward the corrupted crystal matrix. Now, who's ready to do something really stupid? Zarah burst into the emergency suit locker, grabbing the newest prototype of the Alliance EVA suit, a hybrid of Kurthani crystal tech and human flexibility. The engineering team watched in horror as she began modifying it on the spot, ripping out safety regulators and replacing them with jury-rigged components from her personal toolkit. You're not seriously going outside? KR Stal's crystals flickered with panic. The battle is still ongoing. The void is filled with weapons fire and debris. That's exactly why I need to go out there. Zarah didn't look up as she spliced wires that definitely weren't meant to be spliced. The Draknids are using some kind of resonance weapon that corrupts crystal matrices from the inside out. But what if we could reverse the corruption from the outside? She pulled a device from her boot, a modified quantum harmonic inducer that she'd been tinkering with in her spare time. It wasn't exactly regulation equipment. In fact, it wasn't exactly legal on most Alliance worlds. This is insanity, one of the Hive engineers chittered. The mathematical probability of survival in such conditions is. Never tell me the odds, Zarah grinned as she integrated her device into the suit's systems. KR Stal, I need you to monitor the power core's harmonic frequencies and relay them to me. We're going to try something that's either brilliant or spectacularly stupid. The ship shuddered again as another hit landed. Through the viewport, green corruption continued spreading across the hull like a technological plague. Zarah sealed her helmet and activated the suit's systems. The HUD flickered to life, immediately filling with warning messages about unauthorized modifications. When I get out there, she explained while doing a final check of her equipment, I'm going to try to establish a counter-resonance field. The Draknids are using our perfect geometry against us, so let's get imperfect. She pulled out what looked like a standard repair kit, but had been modified with parts from at least 4 different species technologies. Human circuitry merged with Kurthani crystals, powered by Hive collective bioelectric cells, all held together with what appeared to be food-grade adhesive. Is that condensed coffee residue used as a conductor? KR Stal asked incredulously. Best insulator in human space, Zarah winked. Now I need you to open the maintenance airlock and get ready to modulate the power core on my mark. The emergency airlock cycle seemed to take forever. As the outer doors finally opened, Zarah activated her suit's magnetic boots and stepped into chaos. The battle raged around the crystalline dawn, space itself lit by weapons fire and dying ships. The corrupted sections of hull glowed with that sickly green energy, spreading like cancer through the geometric perfection of Kurthani engineering. Right then, she muttered, beginning her precarious walk across the hull. Time to do some very geometric things to this very geometric ship. She placed her modified devices at strategic points along the hull, each one looking like some mad scientist's art project. Where they touched the corrupted crystal, they began emitting pulses of energy that clashed horribly with the ship's natural harmonics. KR Stal, she called through the comm, start feeding me those frequency readings. We're going to find their resonance pattern and give it indigestion. Numbers began scrolling across her HUD as KR Stal relayed the data. The Draknid weapon was using the ship's perfect crystalline structure to propagate its effects like a virus exploiting a computer's own code. But human technology had never cared much for perfection. Activating counter-resonance field, now Zarah announced, fingers flying over the controls of her cobbled-together device. And KR style? You might want to tell everyone to hold on to something. She hit the activation switch. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ship's entire crystalline structure began to vibrate at a frequency that set teeth on edge and made Kurthani crystals ring like cosmic wind chimes. Its working, KR style's voice was filled with disbelief. The corruption is it's being disrupted. Zarah watched as her counter-resonance field spread from her devices, creating patches of chaos in the perfect crystalline structure. Where order met disorder, the Draknid corruption couldn't propagate. It was like trying to write a computer virus for a system that randomly changed its own code. Hey, she shouted triumphantly. Let's see them corrupt something that's already corrupted. KR style, start bringing power systems back online. Reroute everything through the damaged sections, they won't be expecting that. But those sections are compromised, KR style protested. The geometric patterns are completely disrupted. Exactly. Sometimes you need a little chaos to fight chaos. Trust me. As if to punctuate her point, a nearby explosion rocked the ship. Zarah's magnetic boots lost contact with the hull for a heart-stopping moment before re-engaging. A piece of debris from a destroyed Draknid ship tumbled past, missing her by meters. Power core stabilizing, KR style reported. The corruption is receding. But Engineer Chen, these readings, they make no mathematical sense. Welcome to human engineering, Zarah laughed, the sound slightly manic as she continued placing devices across the hull, where we break physics so badly it starts working again. She reached the final placement point just as another Draknid ship fired on their position. But this time, instead of shattering, the crystalline Dawn's hull absorbed the hit. The corruption attempted to spread but met Zarah's chaotic counter-resonance field and fizzled out like a wave hitting a rocky shore. Main power restored to 60%, KR style announced, weapons coming online. But the harmonic disruption, it's spreading throughout the entire ship. Good. Zarah began making her way back to the airlock. Let it spread. Sometimes the best defense isn't a perfect shield, it's being too much of a mess to break properly. The ship's weapons blazed to life, powered by systems that should never have worked together, protected by a defense that violated every principle of Kurthani engineering. But it worked. The Draknid corruption weapons splashed harmlessly against the hull, unable to find purchase in the deliberately induced chaos of Zarah's modifications. I hope somebody's recording this, she muttered as she reached the airlock. Because I have absolutely no idea how to write this up in the maintenance log. The Emergency Engineering Council convened while battle damage still smoldered around them. High Counselor V. Trix's crystalline form vibrated with frequencies that indicated extreme distress as they reviewed the sensor logs of Zarah's modifications. This defies every principle of crystal harmonics. V. Trix gestured at the holographic display, showing the ship's new power signature. The patterns are completely chaotic. The geometric synchronization is beautiful, interrupted junior engineer Zarah, their crystals pulsing with excitement. The young Kurthani immediately dimmed their luminescence in embarrassment as all eyes turned to them. Explain, V. Trix demanded, their tone somewhere between horror and curiosity. Zarah's crystals brightened again as they brought up detailed scans. The human engineer didn't just disrupt the corruption, she created an adaptive defense system. Look at these resonance patterns. They're constantly shifting, never maintaining perfect geometry long enough for the Draknid weapons to lock on. KR style, still looking slightly shaken from the earlier chaos, nodded slowly. It's like watching a quantum particle avoid observation by refusing to settle into a definite state. It's an abomination of engineering, muttered one of the senior Kurthani technicians. And yet they trailed off, their crystals shifting through colors of confusion and reluctant admiration. The ship's AI displayed a new set of readings. Power efficiency had actually increased by 23%, despite, or perhaps, because of the deliberate imperfection in the crystal matrices. The Draknid fleet had withdrawn, their primary weapon rendered useless against the crystalline Dawn's newly chaotic defenses. She used our own maintenance tools as quantum frequency modulators, Zarah continued, their excitement overtaking their usual deference. And look here, she incorporated Hive Collective biotechnology to create self-adapting power conduits. The system is learning, evolving with each attack. Trix's color patterns shifted through various shades of disbelief. But the calculations, the risks involved. That's just it, KR-style interjected, their voice carrying a new note of understanding. She didn't calculate everything. She improvised, adapted, like their species always does. The engineering bay doors hissed open, and Zarah walked in, still wearing her modified EVA suit minus the helmet. Her hair was a mess, her face smudged with grease and crystal dust, but her eyes sparkled with triumph. The Thani engineers found themselves unconsciously shifting away from her, not in fear anymore, but in the way one might step back from a force of nature. She had taken their perfect technology and turned it into something that shouldn't work, couldn't work, and yet undeniably did work. Engineer Chen Trix's tone carried an odd mixture of resignation and respect. Your methods are unprecedented. That's one word for it, Zarah grinned, pulling out her jury-rigged quantum harmonic inducer. Want me to show you how it works? To everyone's surprise, Zarah moved forward eagerly. The way you modified the crystal lattice structure to accept random quantum fluctuations, it's brilliant. Could you explain how you knew it would synchronize with the power core's base frequency? Zarah laughed. I didn't know. I hoped. Sometimes that's all you can do, hope and adapt. Trix's crystals pulsed with what might have been a sigh. Perhaps there is something to be said for controlled chaos. Your approach, while completely contrary to all established principles, has proven effective. Around the room, other engineers were beginning to nod. The initial horror had given way to professional curiosity. Several were already taking readings of the modified systems, their traditional geometric sensors struggling to make sense of the beautiful chaos Zarah had created. I believe, KR-style said slowly, their crystals glowing with newfound appreciation. We may need to revise our engineering manuals. It seems there's more than one way to achieve harmony. The bridge of the crystalline dawn hummed with an entirely new frequency, one that would have given any traditional Thani engineer a headache. But to Admiral Chen, it was the sound of possibility. All systems operational, KR-style reported from engineering, their voice carrying an unfamiliar note of excitement. Power levels at 115%, though I must note this violates several laws of crystal dynamics. Noted Admiral Chen smiled, watching as the tactical display showed the Draknid fleet regrouping for another assault. Battle stations, everyone. Let's show them what a reckless ship can do. The Draknid flagship, a massive organic crystal hybrid vessel, launched another wave of their corruption weapons. Green tendrils of energy reached across space toward the Alliance ships, but this time, something different happened. Impact in 3, 2, 1, the tactical officer counted down. The corruption weapons struck the crystalline dawn's hull and simply fizzled. Where they expected to find perfect geometric patterns to corrupt, they encountered Zarah's chaotic defense system instead. The green energy scattered harmlessly across the ship's surface like rain on a window. By the first crystal breathed a Thani officer. It's actually working. Main weapons charged, announced the weapons officer. Crystal resonance cannons showing unprecedented power levels due to the YO modifications. Admiral Chen leaned forward in his command chair. Target their flagship. Let's return the favor. The crystalline dawn's weapons blazed to life. But instead of the usual precise geometric patterns of crystal energy, they fired beams that twisted and shifted unpredictably. The Draknid shields, calibrated to defend against standard Alliance weapons, might as well have been tissue paper. Direct hit the tactical officer's mandibles clicked rapidly in excitement. Their primary shield generators are offline. Across the battlefield, other Alliance ships were beginning to adapt Zarah's modifications through hastily transmitted engineering updates. One by one, they began shrugging off the Draknid corruption weapons. This is Acting Captain NX Till of the Geometric Harmony. A transmission cut through the comm. Our engineering team has implemented the Chen protocols. We stand ready to engage. More ships reported in, each one adopting the chaotic defense system. The Draknid fleet's primary advantage evaporated before their eyes. Multiple Draknid vessels showing signs of power failure, the sensor officer reported. Their organic systems appear to be rejecting their crystal tech integration. They can't handle the feedback from their failed corruption attempts. Admiral Chen's smile grew wider. Signal all ships. Execute attack pattern Delta 7. Let's show them what happens when you underestimate human ingenuity. The Alliance fleet moved as one, their formerly pristine crystal hulls now shimmering with barely controlled chaos. Each shot they fired carried the unpredictable energy patterns that Zarah's modifications had unleashed. The Draknid fleet, their primary weapon neutralized and their hybrid technology turning against them, began to break formation. Their flagship, still reeling from the first hit, turned to retreat. "They're running," someone shouted from the tactical station. "Not yet, they're not." Admiral Chen stood up. "All ships, concentrate fire on their flagship's engines. Let's make sure they remember this day." The combined firepower of the Alliance fleet struck the Draknid flagship. Its organic crystal hybrid hull, caught between two incompatible states of matter, finally gave up the fight. The massive ship split apart in a spectacular display of light and energy. Enemy fleet in full retreat, the tactical officer confirmed. "Victory is ours." Cheers erupted across the bridge. Even the typically stoic Corps than the officers were glowing with victory patterns. In engineering, Zarah's voice came through the calm, tired but triumphant. "Not bad for a reckless solution, eh?" 1 month after the Battle of the Crystalline Dawn, the Alliance Council chamber looked markedly different. The pristine geometric patterns that had once decorated every surface now incorporated swirling, asymmetrical designs, a visual reminder of how much things had changed. High Counselor Vitrix stood at the central podium, their crystalline form gleaming with formal presentation patterns. In light of recent events, the Engineering Standards Committee has prepared a new addition to the Alliance technical protocols. We call it the Adaptive Engineering Initiative. The holographic display showed schematics of Zarah's modifications, now refined and standardized but still maintaining that essential element of controlled chaos that had proven so effective. Furthermore, Vitrix continued, their crystals pulsing with what could only be described as wry amusement, we are officially retiring the term reckless from our engineering assessments. It seems we had confused innovation with imprudence. Zarah, standing at attention in a cleaned and pressed Alliance uniform, tried not to smirk. The medal for distinguished engineering innovation on her chest caught the light, its surface deliberately designed with imperfect crystal patterns. Engineer Chen's methods have been integrated into our standard training programs, KR Stahl reported from their position near the podium. While some of our more traditional engineers are still adjusting, the results speak for themselves. Fleet efficiency is up 40%, and our defensive capabilities have never been stronger. Around the chamber, representatives from every Alliance species nodded in approval. The Hive Collective had already begun incorporating randomized patterns into their biotechnology. The Silicon Consciousness was experimenting with quantum uncertainty in their processing cores. Perhaps Admiral Chen observed, what we needed all along was a balance between precision and adaptability. The perfect harmony of order and chaos. Indeed, Vitrix agreed, their crystals shifting to a warm, appreciative glow. And in recognition of this new understanding, we have one final announcement. They turned to face Zarah directly. Engineer Chen, you are hereby appointed as the head of the new Cross-Species Innovation Division. We believe there are many more impossible problems that could benefit from your unique perspective. Zarah stepped forward, her grin widening. Thank you, High Counselor. I promise to keep things interesting. Of that, Vitrix's crystals flickered with what might have been a chuckle, we have no doubt. As the chamber erupted in appreciative light patterns and gestures from various species, Zarah looked around at the changed council chamber, at the perfect crystalline structures now embracing imperfection, at the former critics now championing innovation, at the entire Alliance learning to think beyond their comfortable patterns. Sometimes, she reflected, the most powerful engineering breakthrough wasn't a new technology at all. Sometimes it was simply learning to see the beauty in chaos, the strength in adaptation, and the wisdom in being just a little bit reckless.